one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
This story is brought to us from the Tallahassee Democrat. Minutes before 9 a.m. on October 1st of this year, Catherine O'Gara's morning was overwhelmed by two sounds: loud knocks on the door of her Pinellas County home and the barking of her Australian shepherd named Red. Of all reasons to open the door, she didn't expect two armed police officers. They were looking, it turns out, for her husband, James. It was all over a postcard that said only, "You lack values." In the ink, it was a large black marker. The recipient of that, Florida Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia. The officers said, "Hey, listen, don't worry. There's nothing wrong. It's okay." Then why are you there? The 69-year-old Florida Largo resident told them they would not be allowed inside the house, and she turned to get her husband. O'Gara wasn't scared since she's never had a bad encounter with police, but her 11-year-old granddaughter was scared. She stayed in the house waiting to hear what would happen as her grandfather was questioned by police officers, just as she was about to go to school. The O'Gara's story highlights a growing tension in Florida and beyond, all across the nation, between government efforts to guard against threats to public officials and the rights of citizens to criticize those in power. What the couple viewed as an ordinary act of political expression became, within weeks, a law enforcement threat assessment, a sequence of events that free speech experts say risks chilling dissent and eroding the boundaries of protected political speech. In this case, James O'Gara remembered this postcard since he wrote it once. Ingoglia said in a press conference in early August that he'd be heading to St. Petersburg as part of his crackdown on wasteful spending across the state. In fact, the 77-year-old O'Gara said he buys hundreds of blank postcards from Amazon and mails them out to officials expressing his opinions. In this case, he wrote, "You lack values," signed his name, but added no return address. After speaking on his front step with the officers for about 5 minutes, he came back inside and told his wife what happened. Two officers came to ask him whether he had sent a postcard to Ingoglia. He said he did and told them he was just exercising his First Amendment rights. At some point during their chat, he said he realized the officer's appearance was just intimidation. He's right. This was purely simple, nothing else but intimidation. Now, what happened between the chief financial officer's office receiving the card and the two police officers showing up their doorstep isn't known. Catherine O'Gara said that she didn't initially think to ask what agency the officers were with, and they didn't identify themselves to the O'Garas. Well, they have a patch, right? She said she found out through the Largo Police Department they were from the criminal division of the state's Department of Financial Services, which Ingoglia leads as the state chief financial officer. The O'Gara said they frequently speak out against the Trump administration and that they have a "No Kings" sign in their lawn since Catherine organized a protest in Largo following a national No Kings protest against Trump. There's another one coming up this weekend. Sidney Booker, a spokesperson for DFS, said that the CFO didn't see the postcard, nor did he direct officers to go to the home ASAP. Booker said the decision to conduct a threat assessment was solely made by law enforcement, but she didn't clarify which. She also didn't address questions of whether the office has investigated others who have sent correspondence or what costs were associated with sending officers to the O'Gara's home. In a statement, she said, "While it is unfortunate that this incident occurred, the chief financial officer trusts that law enforcement officials are taking necessary steps to protect public safety and the safety of elected officials, while also preserving the First Amendment rights of Floridians, especially in light of recent events." Booker added, as a conservative who believes in free speech, the chief financial officer has never shied away from candid conversations and vigorous debate throughout his career in public service. Now, the O'Gara's experience strikes Larissa Lidsky, a First Amendment law professor at the University of Florida Levin College of Law, as government using its powers to potentially intimidate a critic. She said it would be a different matter if it were a threat, but it's so clearly not anything but criticism, Lidsky said. We expect our government officials to have thick skin and not to use their investigative powers to try to intimidate the citizenry when they are doing exactly what the First Amendment envisions, which is criticizing their government officials. Now, Howard Wasserman, a professor who teaches First Amendment law at Florida International University's College of Law, said people are more on edge about political violence in the United States, but the situation in Largo was not unprotected speech. The problem is it ends up being the government threatening a septuagenarian over a pretty innocuous postcard. Now, Bobby Block, the executive director of Florida's First Amendment Foundation, posted a TikTok video calling what happened to the O'Garas an act of intimidation. He said, "Don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a threat to me. What it does sound like is protected critical political speech," which it does. He wrote, "You lack values." And he's like, "Oh my God, I've been threatened. Get the cops out there and find out what this guy's meaning. I'm scared." Yeah. And I don't know, what would happen? I just want to ask this question. If everybody who sees this video just takes the time to mail a postcard, just a postage stamp, to Ingoglia with the writing, "You lack values," and just send it to him. So he has a stack of them that say, "You lack values." And let's see how many cops he sends to your homes. "Hey, did you send a postcard to this guy?" "Yeah, I did." Because this is infuriating. That our forefathers drew up this First Amendment so that we could criticize our government and criticize our public officials without repercussion. And people say, "Well, there was no repercussion. They showed up at his door." Yeah, intimidation. Knocking on his door. He's getting ready to take his granddaughter to school. Don't tell me there wasn't any repercussions, because they didn't have to do that. But I want to know what happens if everybody sends this Ingoglia postcard saying, "You lack values."